The real answer is that I was studying the Alexander technique and all these other related disciplines. And this friend of mine, who was kind of a mentor and a pioneer in the field of creative thinking and accelerated learning, he had an engagement with a multinational company in Switzerland, 5-day retreat, and he invited me to come and teach what I was learning to these corporate people. And I did, and they really liked it. And the head of human resources for this company said, we want this young American on all of our seminars around the world. So all of a sudden in my 20s, I was flying all over the world teaching on these leadership retreats. And I thought, oh, there's a real connection between what I've learned about creative thinking and resolving conflict and negotiation and what these people really need to learn. So I began paying attention to who they were, what their needs were, how important innovation was. And they were all talking about it, but they didn't know the real thinking skills that are needed to think differently. It's not just physical, it's emotional. You suffer the traumas, the heartbreaks, the disappointments of life that are inevitable for all of us, whoever you are. You'll go through something, and then you'll go through something else, and then something unexpected, and then maybe something even more difficult. So do you hold all that in your body? Do you make protective patterns? Do you close down your heart? Do you punch your shoulders? Do you have a permanent, tension in your face or anger? Or just, you see this, the armoring that people develop unconsciously. And it's an amazing gift to know how to let that go, because then you feel more alive and you can experience more of life and more joy, more beauty, more happiness, more playfulness. Well, I just thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw when I first saw it. I mean, I saw this little Japanese guy throwing these big American guys all over the place, and it looked real. And then when I first experienced it, I realized it was real. And I thought, I want to learn that just because it seemed really cool. But I also was very attracted to the philosophy, which was aikido, 3 Japanese syllables. I means harmony. Ki is like chi or prana, it means life energy. And do is like the Tao, like the path to awakening or enlightenment. So aikido is the path of harmonious energy. So I thought, well, what a good idea to learn how to harmonize your own energy, but then to use it as a metaphor for resolving conflict, which is an inevitable part of our lives, in as harmonious a way as is possible. Walking is important to great minds from all of the world's traditions. And one of the things that we had a lot of fun with in the book Walking Well is describing some of the ways different geniuses throughout history have been inspired by walking, especially walking in nature. So Leonardo da Vinci, for example, invented the pedometer so he could measure the distance of his walks. In Italy, it's called the passeggiata. Everybody goes for a walk, strolls around the town square and says hello and looks at each other's finery. And
welcome to your journey to find true tranquility on the Tranquility Magazine podcast. Please become a subscriber now to help us create more engaging and uplifting content for viewers and listeners like you. With your host, Jasmine Maya Royce. Today's episode featuring... For more information, visit our website at tranquilitymagazine.com.
Today we're excited to have Michael J. Gelb, but he is a pioneer in the fields of creative thinking and executive coaching and innovative leadership. He is a 5th degree black belt in aikido and a gifted teacher in tai chi, as well as the Alexander technique. He is also a professional juggler who performed with the Rolling Stones. He is a co-author of 17 books, including the international bestseller How to Think Like Leonardo da Vinci, which has been translated into over 25 languages and has sold over 1 million copies, including his newest book, now out, Walking Well, with his co-author Bruce Fertman, which he also has just recently published. I am so excited, Michael, to have you today. And my always first question is, what is your current mantra or state of mind?
Well, my current mantra is Om. Om.
Very
It's the
meditative
simplest.
already.
Yes, it's the simplest, most elegant mantra. And my current state of mind is oriented towards learning and optimizing, accelerating my growth on every level, and having as much fun as possible and helping as many people as I can.
It's amazing to be understanding of that, as like you've been gifted as a teacher for so many years. It seems like you are resonating with how to evolve everybody's understanding and work with that, and the simple practices which are not simple.
Well, if you're not really doing that, then you probably shouldn't be teaching anything, because it means you're teaching something from the past. It's already become stale. And I'm really excited about the new discoveries that I make and sharing those with people as I make them. And that attitude is probably the most important thing to share, even more than any insight or technique or methodology. It's helping people awaken their own. It's our birthright. It's our natural inheritance. We're all born really curious. It's the first principle for thinking like Leonardo da Vinci, the curiosità. So unfortunately for most people, they go to school and they learn that answers are more important than questions. They go out to the world of work, they try to conform, they lose some of that passionate curiosity, imagination, and their energy starts to dwindle.
Mm.
Somehow that never happened to me.
That's good. Always, those are important ideas, because you are touching on a point that I see is very clear, in a way that your imagination is part of who you are, but we lose that after time, that we kind of fail to use that imagination to create our world or our understanding or that creative pursuits, whatever direction it would mean, because you need some of that creativity to create anything, but it's sometimes being stagnant. And so recrafting that and relearning it from your childhood self is kind of a lost art, so to speak. So very important idea. So you were saying that you've been a teacher of so many things. You have to update my wheelhouse to understand, what is the Alexander technique?
Well, the Alexander technique was named after F.M. Alexander, who was a Shakespearean actor way back in the 19th century in Australia. And he had a challenge, which was that in the middle of his performances, his voice failed him.
Mm.
So he went to doctors and speech therapists and so on, and followed their instructions. Nothing really seemed to work. And it was just one of those kind of genius, independent thinkers. Instead of just giving up or trying something else, he thought, there must be something I'm doing that's causing the problem.
Mm.
So he needed feedback, which he couldn't get from video because it hadn't been invented yet. So he looked himself in the mirror, and he noticed that as soon as he started thinking about doing one of these soliloquies from Shakespeare, which were his specialty, that he he observed a very subtle but noticeable pattern of tension in his body. And he thought that that pattern was probably responsible for his vocal problem.
Hmm.
And because he noticed also that that pattern became more exaggerated when he was doing a more difficult or challenging passage from Shakespeare. Except it wasn't that easy because this habit pattern was unconscious and deeply wired. So he came up with an amazingly clever way to free himself from this pattern. And it worked because he became famous on the stage for the power of his voice and his stage presence.
Oh, wow.
And a group of doctors came to him. They had a theatrical company and they came to him for lessons because they were so impressed with what he was doing. And the doctors got the idea, gee, this might be able to help some of our patients, people with stiff necks and bad backs and breathing problems. And it did. So way back in 1904, they helped to sponsor him to go to London, which was then the world center of the theater.
Mhm.
And he became known as the protector of the London theater. He gave the top actors and actresses of the day lessons, and it's taught today at the Royal Academy of Music, the Royal Academy of Drama, the Juilliard School. And I'm getting ready to go out to Malibu. I teach on a 5-day Alexander Technique seminar.
Hmm.
This will be our 45th year of running this seminar.
Wow.
And of all the disciplines I've studied, it's one of the most precious and valuable. And it becomes more precious and valuable as you get older, because most people, as they get older, tend to be, they're losing the battle with gravity and they get injured and they're getting more like this. But what you want to be able to do is win the battle with gravity and harmonize with gravity so that as you get older, you become more open, more present, more connected. So yeah, the Alexander technique is a super elegant, wonderful methodology for accessing that original openness, energy, and poise you had when you were a child
Mhm.
and strengthening it as you get older.
Yeah, I think it's surprising to me. I'm kind of in awe that I've never heard of it, being with my background and what I've done for most of my life and also been theater trained and everything. So it is surprising that I've been ignorant to this idea for so long that I had to touch on it because I didn't know what it was and I didn't do the research before because I was waiting for you to teach us all exactly what it is because it's important to have those fundamentals. And also you're talking about posture and structure. And most of our generation has a tendency to we're over a computer, we're slouching more, we're not
On the
doing any.
phone, text
Yeah,
neck, all that thing. Yeah. Yeah.
a very important idea for back structure if you're speaking about that as well as vocal cords because slouching would compress that. And I think it's a very important technique that most of us need to be working on. But you went into
I agree.
yeah, I guess it's just an idea that, with what you're saying in longevity, the hunched shoulders and, the posture, you're not going to be moving as well. Because if you're not moving as well, you're going to have that inner stagnation and that inner, like, protective in a way. Maybe I'm
Yes.
wrong in that.
No,
So,
you're not wrong. It's not just physical, it's emotional. You
mm,
suffer the traumas, the heartbreaks, the disappointments of life that are inevitable for all of us, whoever you are.
mhm.
You'll go through something and then you'll go through something else and then something unexpected and then maybe something even more difficult. So, do you become, do you hold all that in your body? Do you make protective patterns? Do you close down your heart? Do you
Mm,
hunch your shoulders? Do you have a permanent, tension in your face or anger? Or just, you
mm.
see this, the armoring that people develop unconsciously. And it's an amazing gift to know how to let that go because then you feel more alive and you can experience more of life and more joy, more beauty, more happiness, more playfulness.
It is important to understand remembering to play, no matter how old you are. It is like you go to the fundamentals of the basics, play and imagination. You need those to be able to be kind of still alive while living, so to speak, because that's part of the joy. Happiness is predominantly needed thing in every concept. But you were talking about armoring, and in my educational experience, I talk about the back as the backpack of woes. And you're saying armor, which is a greater like description, because every time we put something emotionally or physically into our back to take it with us, and it can create that, overburdened, over emotionally supported, other people's emotions, or so to speak, anything like that, that will make you kind of lose the ability to stand with confidence. And
Yes, so
so you have explored aikido, and I'm inquisitive because one of the things that I love, it's also Tai Chi is great, and both of them have a structure. But why specifically we're going to start on aikido? Was that a direction that you looked into, and what did you learn and take away from that experience while you're still doing it?
yeah. Well, I just thought it was the coolest thing I ever saw when I first saw it. I mean, I
Mm.
saw this little Japanese guy throwing these big American guys all over the place, and it looked real. And then when I first experienced it, I realized it was real. And I thought, I want to learn that just because it seemed really cool. But I also was very attracted to the philosophy, which was aikido, three Japanese syllables. I means harmony. Ki is like chi or prana, it means life energy. And
Mhm.
do is like the Tao, like the path to awakening or enlightenment. So aikido is the path of harmonious energy. So I thought, well, what a good idea to learn how to harmonize your own energy, but then to use it as a metaphor for resolving conflict, which is an inevitable part of our lives, in as harmonious a way as is possible.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's a very important idea because in your experience, did you originally learn here in the States? And did you find a great teacher for that kind of gave you that inner philosophy from it? Because I think it translates in different ways here
Yes.
in America.
Well, fortunately, I had great teachers. One of them is a really good friend of mine, and I just moved to not too far from where he has his school, and he's invited me to teach at his school, which is really cool. And I used to travel out a lot to California. There's a gentleman there named George Leonard, who unfortunately left this world a few years ago, but George was probably the most articulate representative of the Aikido philosophy. He wrote
Mm.
brilliant articles in Esquire magazine. Really, this is going way, way back. And then brilliant books about how we can really apply this energy, strengthen our life energy, and then learn how to blend with and harmonize with the energy of conflict when we have differences with other people. And I just found that it's so inspiring. And I got to meet George. We became friends. I used to teach at his dojo out in Mount Tamalpais in California. And so yeah, it's a philosophy of life. It's center yourself, whatever's going on. We all lose our center, but learn how to get it back quickly. Then look at the life in a challenge. Instead of being defensive, don't make the situation worse. Be empathic. Look at the world from other people's points of view, not just intellectually, but emotionally. And when you do that, creative solutions emerge.
Mm.
So I call that center, blend, lead. Those are the three practical life application principles of Aikido.
Mhm.
And that's what
Yeah,
it's all about.
I mean, very important because I've seen it shift in different directions here because you're talking about the inner philosophy. And I think it's important to understand the structure that Unlike other pursuits of karate or jiu-jitsu was more defensive, but aikido is more you're trying to non-implicate some kind of physical violence as your pursuit of knowledge or defense to kind of shift it in a different direction so you don't have to take a stance for physical interaction, so to speak. But I've seen it kind of translate or mistranslated sometimes here in the States that most people are looking for that karate style or, other practices that are more on the defense to kind of go into a fight already.
Sure. There's nothing wrong with learning all of that. And if you're going to learn Aikido, you have to learn all this other stuff. I mean, I've studied boxing, I've studied jujitsu, I've studied kung fu, I've studied dirty fighting. And because, I might believe in harmony, but if you don't, I can't say, hey, wait a minute, you're violating the principles of harmony. You're just going to do whatever you're going to do. So it's really good to know all the bad things that people might do. But even then, just diffuse situations to the extent that you can diffuse situations. And you can't really apply Aikido unless you have real strength, inner strength, unless you have some martial prowess, because it's just an empty philosophy. So you have to be in a position. What people don't understand is that to not hurt somebody in an actual altercation, you have to be it's much easier. I could teach you how to punch somebody, in the nose really hard. It's very shocking. You've been punched in the nose. It's like, what? It's relatively easy to learn compared to moving out of the way and harmonizing with somebody's energy. So first you have to understand the punch, or what you're getting out of the way of. And if you can't throw a punch, somebody's just going to walk right over you. So you do have to know martial reality if you want to then move beyond it. So I studied all that stuff with great intensity, but I never wanted to hurt anyone, and I never wanted to get hurt. And I want to protect myself, and I want to protect others when that's appropriate. So, the founder of Aikido was a genius. The reason everybody studied with him was he was the toughest martial artist in all of Japan. The reason his philosophy had credibility is he could beat the crap out of everybody. That's why they bowed to him. And when he said, we are here to learn how to harmonize, not to hurt one another, but to help one another. That really woke people up. They wouldn't have listened to you. Nobody would have listened to him if he just was a philosopher who couldn't back this up.
Yeah.
It's when he threw them across the room and they had no idea what happened. And they said, you got to teach me how to do that. That his philosophy really began to have profound influence.
Yeah, it's stuck. I mean, you need a leader because you work in leadership in a way. It was like, I think that's a missing factor that I've seen. Like, you need a strong leader in order to give you a philosophy or the understanding to follow it, because you need a reason to follow it. I was raised, my dad taught me how to box when I was a child so that I would never be afraid, so to speak, or I can turn a punch if I needed one, but I don't really go into it thinking that I need to box somebody today. But it is good to understand the flow motion and the movement, but also touching on the leadership concept. Like, how did you work on explore innovative leadership and what it was for you and how you kind of worked on that for other people?
The real answer is that I was studying the Alexander technique and all these other related disciplines. And this friend of mine, who was kind of a mentor and a pioneer in the field of creative thinking and accelerated learning, he had an engagement with a multinational company in Switzerland, 5-day retreat, and he invited me to come and teach what I was learning to these corporate people. And I did, and they really liked it. And the head of human resources for this company said, we want this young American on all of our seminars around the world. So all of a sudden in my 20s, I was flying all over the world teaching on these leadership retreats. Amazing. And I thought, oh, there's a real connection between what I've learned about creative thinking and resolving conflict and negotiation and what these people really need to learn. So I began paying attention to who they were, what their needs were, how important innovation was. And they were all talking about it, but they didn't know the real thinking skills that are needed to think differently. And my friend had written books and books and was a renowned expert in that field. So I thought, yeah, this material could really help these people.
Mhm.
And then I slowly began to realize that, oh, if I want to make the world a better place, working with business leaders is probably the best way to do it because business is really where most of the power and the money is. And if you could get those people to be more humanistic, more conscious, more compassionate, more creative, that seemed to me to be the way to make a contribution. So that's what I've been doing since then.
I mean, it's an amazing thing, but also you're saying like, innovating ideas and rewiring the synapses of where you've been, educated before, maybe kind of recrafting it. So what pulled you to see that in your experience or just the people that you come across, the need? I mean, it showed in your work that you were requested, but other than that, what kind of philosophies or speaking concepts did you do for that?
I'm just always learning something new and learning about the mind. My mother was a psychologist,
Mm.
and both my parents were always learning. They always had stacks of books. We had vibrant conversations in our household. We valued independent thought. I, went to a very good university that strengthened those abilities. Then I studied the world's spiritual traditions because I thought there's nothing more important than knowing ultimate truth, and I want to get that figured out first.
The ultimate question of why, yes.
Yes, exactly. And then I was looking for, well, okay, well, what's the best way for me to translate these insights that I've had at a pretty young age into some way of actually working in the world. I'm not the type to go off into a mountaintop or become a monk, or I love
You want to
life,
be a
and
hermit?
that's not my deal. No. Uh, uh, so first I became a professional juggler. That was my first passion.
That's fun.
And then I trained for 3 years as an Alexander Technique teacher.
Mhm.
And I wrote my master's thesis that got published as my first book, which has now been in print for 43 years. So that helped me get these opportunities to go, for example, to this course in Switzerland. And then I got invited to speak to all these businesses around the world. And then I realized, gee, if you write a book, you learn a lot from writing the book, and then other people read it and it helps them. And then they invite you to come and speak to them and teach them, and you get to travel around the world. I said, well, why don't I just do? So I've been doing that. This is Walking Well is my 18th book,
Mm-hmm.
and each one has been an amazing learning experience. And then, I've gotten invited already to a couple of places to teach this material,
Mm-hmm.
which I love to do. And that's just what I intend to keep doing
Yeah.
for this
I mean,
lifetime because I love it.
that's the thing. You find what you love and you can pursue it no matter the direction because you also understand that besides loving it, you are geared towards education and experiences. So if you had experience with your family, reading more books, exploring new topics, it's very helpful for your own evolution and understanding to be a great teacher. You would need all those resources. And this is a great book, but you touched on before, you speak a lot of Italian and descriptions. So are you Italian or are you just because Leonardo da Vinci being Italian from Florence, and I'm a big fan as an innovator and an extreme thinker. He is a great resource for Italian culture from the Renaissance idea. But where did you kind of touch upon the idea of the Italian words and understanding of philosophies?
So my grandma Rosa was Italian,
Mm,
and
tutto bene.
I grew up with homemade pasta, fantastic food. She was also an artist, and she's the one who told me about Leonardo da Vinci when I was maybe 7 or 8 years old. And he was just my hero. It seemed like the most amazing human who ever lived.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started going around the world and teaching creative thinking to these business people, I would tell some stories about Leonardo, and they really were well received. So, I just maybe I should write write a book. And the thing that's distinctive about the book, because there are many biographies of Leonardo, and Ken Burns is about to release a PBS special about Leonardo. But what I did way back in the 1990s was I asked this simple question: what is he trying to teach us? What is his message for us today?
Mm.
And then I read his notebooks with that question in mind, and he really was giving very practical advice. And what I did is I translated it into contemporary language, and it struck a chord and got translated into 25 languages. And I still get texts and emails and stuff from people around the world saying, "Oh my God, it changed my life." And I love that.
I mean, he is a genius in his own right, and I've always been geared to kind of like explore and learn about him. When I went to Florence, he was the first thing that I did. I was like, okay, where's the
Yeah.
places? And I traveled all the way to Milan just to see the Vitruvian Man because it was on display for a rarity. And so he is very much like that gear set of innovative thinking, creative exploration, and a leader in before the time needed all these ideas. So it is a good person to pull from.
Yes,
But
exactly.
you are mentioning some Italian ideas about walking and the importance of walking and how that kind of translates. In England, where I lived for about 8 years, we called it an evening constitutional. After dinner, you would go on a walk. And so you said a phrase in Italian about what kind of their philosophy around walking and the experience of seeing things. And how did you kind of pull that as your experience from Italy being so much an important idea?
Well, walking is important to great minds from all of the world's traditions. And one of the things that we had a lot of fun with in the book Walking Well is describing some of the ways different geniuses throughout history have been inspired by walking, especially walking in nature.
Mhm.
So Leonardo da Vinci, for example, invented the pedometer so he could measure the distance of his walks. In Italy, it's called the passeggiata. Everybody goes for a walk, strolls around the town square and says hello and looks at each other's finery. And so the real motivation, though, to write Walking Well came from my connection with my co-author, Bruce Fertman, who's an Alexander technique teacher and a former professional modern dancer, a scholarship gymnast, and also an aikido and tai chi guy. And Bruce is a very gifted movement artist and teacher.
Mhm.
So I've known him for many, many years. And just over a year and a half ago, I was in Santa Fe for the first time, Santa Fe, New Mexico, uh, uh, after the pandemic. And Bruce lives out in New Mexico, and he knew I was coming, and he told me he had some insights about walking that he wanted to share. And I was open because I know he's a genius. On the other hand, I was skeptical because I teach Aikido, I teach Tai Chi, I teach Alexander technique. I love to walk. I'm
Mhm.
pretty sure, like most people, I'm pretty good at it. I know how to do it. But I got together with him. I said, okay, teach me like I'm a beginner. Show me what you got.
Mhm.
And it took about 45 minutes. And I had an absolute epiphany. He made, what he taught me made my walking easier, more comfortable, more
Mhm.
fluid. And I just thought, we got to write a book together. We got to share this with the world. So that was the begin. That's the origin story of Walking Well. And then what we really aimed to do was recreate that lesson
Mhm.
in words without the need even for illustrations. And I actually believe we have succeeded based on our readers' feedback so far. But then we also created a website with all sorts of free illustrations and videos to help people
Mhm.
even more, walkingwell.com. And there's a professor, Linda Hill from Harvard. She's a pioneer in what she defines as creative abrasion, which is if you can really have a respectful but vehement disagreements with somebody and you're committed to a higher purpose, and Bruce and I were committed to whatever will serve our reader the most. We just had this great creative abrasion going back and forth with these passionate conversations. And
Mhm.
what it did is it shifted each of us out of what we thought we already knew to
Mhm.
discover something beyond what either of us knew,
Mhm.
which is what you can learn when you read the book.
Basic, yes, because you have different chapters and sections in a way that the first part is more about being aware of your movement and your physical body, your connection with the earth, how you kind of strive to how you walk. And it penned something in my mind before because like, oh, I have worked on that idea of posture and movement before for dance and everything experience wise. But it was funny that one time I was in San Diego, I was walking down the street and I was working for a different company, and three girls that were screaming my name were riding up in the car, and they knew that it was me because of my walk. I'm like, okay, apparently I have a distinctive walk that I was unaware of before that point. And then, oh, yes, I already have a stride, but how to recraft that in a way that it makes more of a movement rather than, you're walking just because you have to, or you do that because you need to. But it's important for those topics and to like understand your body and your connection to the earth and how you move with it, which you kind of talked about. But in that, you also explain kind of concepts on something you spoke about previously. More the second section, you kind of go into invoking the muse and the concept between invoking the muse while you're walking. You want to touch on that to understand what you mean?
Sure. Well, in in any activity, if you want to optimize, if you want to get the most out of whatever you're doing, you want to set an intention for the activity. So last night I cooked dinner for a friend. I set the intention of cooking a really fabulous dinner with the ingredients that I had assembled based on what I thought she would like the most
Mm-hmm.
and what would go with the wine that I was serving. And I include in that intention the process of not just creating a great meal, but of enjoying the whole process of putting it together. So, what if you set an intention for every walk that you took? And what if one of those intentions, you took a walk every day with the intention, not just to do what people say, oh, I want to get my exercise, I got to get those 10,000 steps or what, but what if you set an intention to get insight into the direction of your life or what could help you the most with a personal challenge that you're struggling with?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, and it turns out that the combination of setting an intention and then walking just seems to be one of the simplest, most powerful, and elegant ways for discovering your genius. For the other secret, though, is you have to write it down.
Ah, writing down the attention or the
Well, write down the intention and then write down the ideas that you get when you're walking, because you'll get more ideas if you have an intention. And if you, people go on these pilgrimages, they go all over the world, they go to sacred sites. One of my friends is a CEO, great guy. He was going on the Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage in
mm.
Spain. And he heard about my book just before he left, and he called me up from the airport and asked me for a lesson.
Great timing.
And I was happy to help him. He's a great guy. But part of the idea is you don't have to go on a formal pilgrimage to get that transformational spiritual benefit. You can get it in your daily walk by invoking your muse. And the way you do that is by asking, but then you have to listen for the answer. And that's why we want you to write down what arises.
Yeah, I think it's important also you're saying about setting an intention as what I wanted you to expand about a little bit because it is a version of a meditation because for movement meditation and the idea that you don't have to sit still with all your fingers in everything perfect, but you can also do it by walking. So you want to expand upon meditation and how you have geared it towards walking.
Sure. Well, every walk could be a meditation, and it really helps. Here's the thing, though, before you even think about a theme for your meditation, this is why the book is structured the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
If you can integrate what Bruce and I are sharing in part one of the book, you will then feel more of a connection with the earth with every step you take. Every step will become more comfortable. Every step will give you more energy, and you will be shifted more naturally into a meditative state. Instead of walking around mindlessly and unconsciously and going, I got to do this and I got to do that. And you see people like, get out of my way. So life is precious. I wouldn't recommend walking through life in that way. So we want you to walk through life more in a more present-centered way that's just more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if you could just enjoy every step a little bit more? And since Bruce taught me what he taught me, pretty much every step I have taken is just much more comfortable and more enjoyable, which is why I wanted to write this book together. It's why I'm so passionate about it, because it's really simple, but it really works. And then when you've changed your biomechanics the way we guide you to do, then you're really going to be way more receptive to all the meditations we offer you and all the practices and the intention setting. That will happen more naturally and authentically. You won't have to superimpose it because it just arises. The desire to get more out of every walk is something that happens when you're already getting more out of every walk because you're walking well.
Yeah, I think you made a quote or a phrase in the beginning also saying, walk now until you can't walk later or something related to that, because also movement is very important no matter where you are in your journey, so to speak, because it helps with you mentioned in a breakdown of walking and how it describes the different topics. Do you remember which ones you touched on for that?
Well, I remember what you're talking about is the preface to the book, which is called
Mm-hmm.
Walk While You Can.
Mm-hmm.
And when we went to see my 97-year-old dad, and we were still trying to decide on what title we should give this book. He had been in a wheelchair for a year and was just getting out of it and trying to take a few steps, which he can now do much better. He's improving, 97. He said, you should call your book Walk While You Can. It's really precious if you've ever been injured and have been unable to walk. Mm-hmm. Realize how much you're missing. I've had, a couple of injuries over the years and had to be in a wheelchair every now and then. And wow, I'm so grateful that I can walk now and that I want to walk as well as I can so that I am able to continue walking until I leave this realm.
Yeah. I think it's important to remember sometimes the simple things are the most important, but you also make an abbreviation for walking, a weight regulation, artery flexibility.
Arterial flexibility.
I always bad with those. Longevity, kidney health, immunity, neuroplasticity, and gut health as part of the abbreviation why walking is the most important. And I think that all describe and descriptions are important for understanding why movement and walking are so valuable and
if you read the paragraph after that, it's from Dr. Jody Katz, who's an integrative medicine physician, and she goes on to talk even more about the benefits of walking beyond the walking. And that's who I made dinner for last night.
The irony is always irony, but
And we
yes,
went for a walk.
so you're doing it in action. So you do what you preach. So you teach what you do, and that is part of every good teacher will be able to talk about what they do as an experience in their own life to actually translate it to give guided teaching and aspects that people need to learn. But walking is an important thing that most people forget because you touched on the distraction method. Most of the generation now is like stuck on their phones and can't think about anything. They're not even here. They're not present anymore. And being able to kind of set that aside for a moment or two just to kind of figure out to solve a problem or get outside with nature, because we have beautiful paintings that, have been created by natural things. And sometimes we miss those if we're too screen set. So I always ask my final two questions. What is the best advice you've ever received?
The best advice I ever received was from my mother when I was young, and she said, always use your anxiety creatively.
That's a good one. I was like, I heard recently, anxiety is excitement.
Well, it is if you use it creatively.
Yeah, exactly what
If
you
you don't use it
said.
creatively, then it's just freaking anxiety and it's not good.
Yep, every one of us has a little bit of mirror of that anxiety levels, but public speaking, I'm sure you have used those mother words wisely for that. And my last question is, what was the best takeaway from an experience that you endeavored to learn about where it wasn't as easy, sometimes more difficult?
I don't know, because the difficult ones are the ones I'm still working on. So
Hey, at least you're still trying. That's the
Right,
thing.
yeah.
It's like sometimes
I don't know if I can like sum it up as a takeaway, because it's not like all resolved. This thing's still in process. Just because I have all these tools doesn't mean that everything is all perfect all the time. Far from it, but that's what makes it real. So I'd say learning that it's struggle and feeling overwhelmed and feeling just fear, sadness, grief is all part of our human experience. And it doesn't make you, not only does it not make you a bad person if you're experiencing all of that, it's actually like it feeds the alchemical flame that will really help all of us make all these nice things that I'm saying really real. Like when you can when you can keep walking through the most challenging time in your life, like you don't know what else to do, get out and go for a walk. Have an intention that I'm just going to get out for a walk, and then and then you'll come back and you'll write down what comes up. And usually it's very, very helpful, even in the darkest time of your life. So, yeah, keep walking if you're lucky enough to be able to.
I think it's a great state of mind to understand the human journey, that we have moments of imperfection and also difficulty, because if you're not living, you haven't seen difficulty. If you haven't experienced, you're oblivious to it sometimes. But go down to the simple tactics that are so much more useful than we understand and realize. So Walking Well is an amazing book. I highly recommend it. If you haven't explored the idea of actually movement and understanding your body and your resources to get those steps in, but not for the physical fitness, but also for the idea of the mental understanding, that they pair well together, and a constant reminder that we need to get up and get out more often, because it's very useful. But you can check them out at their own website, walkingwell.com, co-authored by his friend Bruce Fertman. And Michael is accessible on the bio. You can find all his information, and I highly appreciate your time today. Thank you very much, Michael.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Tranquility Magazine podcast. Please take a moment to become a subscriber. We are here to help you with your body, mind, and spirit. We want to thank our team for helping create every episode and content at tranquilitymagazine.com. Find us on our social media to stay up to date and informed. We always appreciate your engagement and feedback.